What's up, everyone? Fate Gaming's division leader Crobbies recently hosted a tutorial session with our new members of ARC, where he kind of just broke down the important basics for getting started with the game. So in this video, we're going to pass along those recordings with tips to help new players survive longer, avoid common mistakes, and feel more confident jumping into raids. Nothing sweaty or overcomplicated, just solid advice straight from experienced players, so let's get into it.
Noise in the background from my dog, but all right, so let me just start with the main screen here for about 10-15 minutes, and then we'll get into some more complicated things. So first off, when you're a new player, especially when you're below level 10, first thing you want to do is just get familiar with what all this stuff is. So the first thing that I think you should do is probably go to your settings tab. What I would recommend for, especially for PvP, is a couple things. So go to your graphics, make sure your VSync is off. You know, it's going to depend on AMD or NVIDIA for the rest of your kind of upscaling and resolution, all that kind of stuff. I go full FOV 80 field of view. You want to see the maximum amount of things possible, and make sure you turn off motion blur. This is really important for FPS and just a smoother experience. And then for me, you know, I would go down and do a little bit of custom quality. I mean, the game looks great to me on these types of settings. So view distance, I always have maximum so I can see enemies render in a distance. But everything else, you know, I'm running a top of the line AMD card, but you can see, like, I don't have my graphics set all the way up. I think if you turn all these down, medium, low, whatever, I mean, texture, I like a little bit here, but, you know, I'm pushing nice frames, maximum of my monitor, so, you know, try to play around with these, and you get a little bit more FPS, and it should help you with PvP. For mouse and keyboard, what I recommend too is, one, if you have mouse software, third-party software, like if you run a Corsair or Razer, whatever mouse, go to your mouse settings, and first of all, like, get comfortable with the DPI that you feel comfortable with. That's smooth. I'm of the mindset in shooting games in particular, you want a fairly high DPI, you know, something around 1500, 2000, something like that. And then in the game is where you want to start tweaking down your sensitivity, and we can kind of talk about that in a minute on how to do that exactly. I'm not going to be able to help anybody with the controller. I don't play with the controller. I'm not a console player, so apologies, this isn't for you in this part, but this is what I would do for mouse and keyboard. The other thing that I think people need to be aware of is be familiar with your controls. I mean, of course, movement, easy enough. But there's a few things in here that I think can be optimized, especially if you have a mouse with some side buttons. One is on the dodge roll, which is normally your left alt key, which I find very awkward to use my thumb to move over from the spacebar to the alt key in combat especially. So I moved it to a thumb button. So if I take a shot out of nowhere, if I'm getting ambushed, I immediately dive using this button just to get out of the way. You know, create movement. That's really helped my PvP. Is the more mobility you have, the more movement you have, the more likely you are to survive, especially like an initial volley. The other thing I like to do is be familiar with a few of these things in the game that, you know, maybe you haven't used before. So for example, toggle walk. This is a good button to know, V, because if you're crouch walking, for example, or you're normal walking and you want to really be quiet, you can click V, toggle it. I use toggle. Click V, makes you super slow, but it makes you super quiet. It's good for hiding, it's good for ambushing, so make sure you know that. In this game, you definitely need to know your shoulder swap, looking over left or right shoulder. If you haven't played around with that, you need to learn this button, because the angle you want to see around, you know, or the angle you want to look around, peek around using your third-party perspective, it really depends on this, so get to know that for sure. The other thing I like, I use another mouse button to go unarmed which makes you run faster when your weapon is put away. So how it works for me is I press the thumb button to put my weapon away. I use mouse wheel up to return to that weapon. And I'm always kind of going back and forth when I'm moving around. You know, I prefer mobility and speed when I'm trying to get somewhere. But if I'm a little bit anxious or I'm a little bit worried, I hear something, I just click that mouse wheel up, get my weapon back out immediately. The other thing in the game, I know someone was asking about this the other day, so I don't mean to, you know, talk too basic here, but you gotta know your items button, Q, you know, your quick slot button for mouse and keyboard. I don't know what it is on controller, like I said, but this is your healing items, your grenades, your adrenaline, all this kind of stuff. So you gotta know that. For me, I bound my emote key to that left alt, because what I do, especially solo, you're gonna have at low level and in solo, you're gonna have the most likely good experiences in PvP, with maybe trying to chat to people. So what I normally do is if I see somebody near me running whatever, I'll emote and I'll be like, hey Raider, or don't shoot, or whatever. If they do not respond, I will take that as a sign that they want a PvP or they're planning an ambush. So, you know, you can kind of alert them to your presence if you want to, especially if they're going to see you anyway. Start with that, see if they'll say anything, and then, you know, go to your proximity chat and be like, hey, what's up, dude? Like, what are you doing? You want to team up, or like you doing a quest or whatever? So, like, most of the time it works. I mean, I've had a pretty good, say, like, in low levels, about 70% of my interactions are positive, but at higher levels, it gets more PvP. So, you know, it kind of changes over time. But anyway, so that's my basic setup there. And then for gameplay, you know, make sure you're on whatever server is closest to you, just to optimize that. You know, sometimes I like to play just PC only. Kids on Xbox tend to be a little bit more PvP focused and stuff like that. You get the squeakers when you're playing against console, but you know, it's up to you. So after that, let's just go to workshop real quick. And again, apologies if this is basic to some people. I just reset my account with the expedition, so I'm still leveling up my benches. Your main focus when you're low level is to acquire items that are necessary to install and upgrade your benches. You make that your primary mission. Everything else is secondary. You know, even making money per se, you know, is secondary to building up your character to the point where making money matters and getting better stuff matters. So, you know, you start with Scrappy. He's leveled up maximum at the moment, but I'll show you what I do in a normal workbench. So, for example, I know for me, I use a lot of shield rechargers. So what I want to do is I click the shield charger, make sure you're tracking the resource. And this is going to alert you in the game. For rubber parts, it'll have a little eyeball. Arc power cells, little eyeball. So you know, like, hey, these items are going to be useful to me. Same thing with gunsmith. Like, for example, none of these guns I particularly care about at the moment, except for maybe the anvil. I can track resources, and then you'll see, like, I've tracked the compensator, mag, you know, things like that. And so I will pick and choose over time kind of what I care about. These ones are still locked because I have yet to upgrade. So to upgrade your bench, you want to go level up. Again, track all these things, right? So I'm tracking rusted gears, tracking mechanical components, which I have, but I still need 3 firing cores. You know, same thing with, I think my gear bench is max level, but, you know, same thing crafting. I like to track all my augments that I care about, medium shields, med labs maxed out, explosives maxed out, but refiner, still looking for motors, circuitry, bombardier cells. So, you know, make sure you track all that and get all those installed. Just focus on upgrading them all. You know, that's your main from level 1 to level, you know, let's say 30, 40. This is your main goal, is to max these out as soon as possible. Next, you have your Raider screen. Your skill tree we can talk about that now. Actually, we'll do the next segment on skill tree, but I think what's important, one is trials. It changes week to week, but you can see I haven't really worked on them yet. But this is a good way to get, cred, get some XP and other things. So you can do this stuff. It's not incredibly important if you're not really wanting to grind it, but it's just something to be aware of. Like, for example, open arc probes. Well, if I know I'm in a map that has a lot of arc probes on it in one of the events, like I can just run around and open those up or whatever. So I wouldn't worry about this too much at low level, but it's just something to add a little bit more flavor in your runs. Next is your projects. Obviously, like, this project is seasonal, but again, they have tracking buttons. So I want to track frying pans because I need one more. So in the match, it'll have a little eyeball in the corner of like, hey, I need this thing. And then for your expedition, like, look, I think, again, your most important thing to do is to level up your workbenches. But if you find yourself with extra items, you can see I'm like tracking all these again, track. You can commit resources as you get them, and especially if you're trying to balance out like how much stuff you have in your stash, which we'll talk about in a minute. But this is, this will take place naturally over time. You don't have to get super focused on this. You have, 60 days when it resets. We still have 50 days left, so I'm really not too concerned about this part. But this is a good way at low levels to get rid of extra stuff in your inventory, especially if your inventory slots aren't maxed out. So just use that as a balancing system. For traders, we'll start here. Celeste, this is where you spend your seeds. So don't underestimate the value of seeds. Like, they're not a throwaway item. They're not an item to be ignored. You can see I have 600. I'll tell you, late game, I was using hundreds of seeds to buy metal, to buy springs and wires, because these were like for weapons components. This you can use in your refiner to upgrade into advanced components to make guns. So, I was buying like 50 of these at a time, making green components for guns or blue components for guns. So seeds are super important. Just save them up. You don't necessarily have to keep 600 on hand, but it is nice, especially late game, to have hundreds of seeds that you can just spend because you want to level up guns. Next is Shawnee. This shop, I think they changed it where it's cred only, right? So you can see, like, these are all cred based purchases, which is your blue system here. So you'll get this by running missions, by doing trials, all that kind of stuff, and dailies, and you can spend your cred in here, and these items reset every day. So I like to spend them on raider keys, for example. Nothing else in here is really super interesting to me, except for maybe these green gun components once in a while, but I would just save your cred up, because cred is also used for your decks. So you can see I've maxed out the decks already, but how those work is you just go on the page and you purchase the items one by one, and you're going to get tokens, you're going to get outfits, you're going to get emotes and gear. The gear's usually pretty crappy, but you can do this over time. So my recommendation for blue cred is spend it on your decks first, like try to get these decks taken out, and then you can start spending it with Shawnee. Other than that, this is all money-based stuff. I really wouldn't recommend buying guns if you can help it. I mean, if you're at the point where you have nothing, just run free loadouts. Especially guns. The ones I spend most on is clinic. I usually get shield chargers, herbal bandages, sometimes defibs, and the other is I like zip lines. And the rest of it I can kind of take or leave. They nerfed the secret grenade, so I don't buy them anymore. They used to one-shot wasps and hornets, but now it takes two, which for $2,000 a pop, $4,000 to kill a wasp, it's just not worth it to me. We went over decks, and then finally, like, yeah, you know, your store. As you unlock your decks, you're going to get tokens. You might be able to afford some cosmetics over time, but it's not that big a deal. So that's the basics of the main menu. I'm going to stop this clip and we'll start something else. So just give me 1 second. All right, good. All right, we can move on. Yep. Oh, sure. So we have a question in about resetting. So how that works is in your Raider tab and under your projects, what's called Expedition. When you max out your Expedition and you see this, it says window opens in 50 days, basically, right? 49 days and 4 hours. If you max out all of these tabs, and then once this window opens, you click Launch Expedition, and it resets your entire account. Now, what you get out of it is, if you have, last time they said, if you have a combined amount of $5 million in currency and items in your inventory, for every $1 million of value, you get 1 extra skill point when you reset your character. So, and we're going to talk about the skill tree now for this second part of the video. So, when I was level 1, I already had 4 skill points to spend, which I immediately used. And then every level you get, you're going to get an additional point. There's no right or wrong way to think about this, but what I would say is, here's how I think about it, and you guys, you know, everyone makes their own decision, but here's what I prioritize. Number 1 is mobility. So I max out Marathon Runner and I max out Youthful Lungs. This just allows you to run further and use less stamina so that you can stay mobile, because really if you're running out of stamina, you risk getting killed by the Ark, you risk getting into a fight that you're out of breath for, and you're always kind of like pausing to walk slow, and it's not good. So I would max these 2 out. I might consider a little bit more in mobility later on, but I've switched my focus. I think that slip and slide is not for me. I find that it's not that valuable to slide further, because I'll teach you a trick on how to slide more efficiently just using the basics. So I don't do that anymore. I also don't really care about fall damage, because I don't really plan on jumping off heights that I don't think I can survive easily. So this is up to you, but I don't really like these ones. Calming Stroll is completely worthless. I do not recommend it. You have to click the V button, V as in Vega, to walk the slowest, and you get a little bit more, you know, stamina regen. And this is a tricky one, because when it says while walking, your stamina regenerates, but walking isn't the same as your normal speed. It's that really slow walking speed when you have to press the V key. So I don't like these ones at all. The only ones I'm considering is maybe this one, Crawl Before You Walk. It says when you're down, you crawl faster. That can be super helpful in PvP when you're in a team, so that you can crawl back to your team or get to cover a little bit quicker. So if you're PvP focused, especially in duos, trios, this one might be a good one to do, but I'll think about it later when I have more points. I don't care about wall leaping. I really don't care about falling and timing the window to perform a recovery roll, because that's just something that you should learn how to do efficiently without this perk. And then like jumping at the end of a vault, I don't really care. Vaulting no longer costs stamina, again, don't really care. Sprint dodge roll further, that can be interesting again for PvP and like dodging out of the way, so that one could be something I consider. And dodge rolls cost less stamina. Again, these 3 right here, these are like very PvP focused, so it's up to you if you want to go into those later on if you have the points. For survival, you know, movement speed while crouching I find helpful, because it lets me sneak up on people a little bit faster. You make less noise and you're crouching, so I like this one. I also like searching faster, making less noise while looting. This one is just that you have to take it to get to these ones, but This one's super important. Broad shoulders carry more weight. You know, you're going to be able to fill up your backpack more, right, and not be over encumbered. So I like this one. I'm going to max it out. Looter's Luck, you know, I don't really max it out. I kind of just take what I need to get in it. You know, because you can reveal more items, but I don't find this is super necessary. I do like Security Breach. I know they've nerfed it since launch. There's less high-value items and stuff in the lockers, but there are definitely runs that you can do in the game where all you're doing is searching security lockers, and you get guns, you get ammo, you get nades. Like, you know, you can loot up a kit pretty quickly if you know how and where to look for these things, but I would just say stay aware of what Embark is doing, because they may nerf what you get out of these things or how many there are. So this is kind of game dependent, but I did like it when I ran it last time I had it. I do like in-round crafting and the upgrade Traveling Tinkerer. So what this allows you to do is in the match you can craft bandages from fabric, which is really helpful if you're running free kits, because all you do is find like 5 fabric, you can make a bandage, and you can quickly get a stack of 5 bandages that way. I took this is nuanced, but if you use fabric for your healing instead of a bandage, it lasts 20 seconds, and while you're under that healing effect, your stamina regen is increased. So this one is kind of interesting, and I do like it. And then, you know, this is like, you're less affected by being over encumbered. Not my favorite. I recommend not being over encumbered. I never try to run over encumbered if I can help it, because the mobility decrease is a killer, and people see you being slow, they're going to ambush you. Like, I would try not to be over encumbered, but if you find yourself doing it a lot, maybe this is good. And then these two, like, I don't really care about Minesweeper. I just shoot the mines or avoid them. So I don't like that one. And then finally, like, conditioning. Use to the weight is really good. If you have it maxed out, you're not going to take penalties when you're running medium shields, and then you take less of a penalty on heavy. Mobility and speed is key to this game, so I do like this one. I'll probably start going into these ones, but Blastborn, I'm not a huge fan of. Hearing-wise, like, you know, mostly when there's an explosion, you're just going to take a massive amount of damage, so I don't really care about the hearing aspect of it as much as I do damage. So this one I kind of just take because I have to. This one, you know, you get a little bit of stamina, but it has a cooldown, so again, maybe not worth maxing it out, but maybe I'll take one. I do like the noise reductions, and the breaching in containers take less time. You know, in this game, what matters is not spending too much time in one place, not spending too much time in a search menu, not spending too much time like breaching a door, because people hear all that noise, and so I do like less noise and, you know, more efficient time, so I do like those two. This one can be interesting again for PvP. It's like when you're hurt, your stamina regens quicker, so I will take that eventually. And I don't really care for this one. It's, if your shield breaks, you get a dodge roll that costs no stamina. If you really want it for PvP, you could take it, but I don't think it's 100% necessary. But what's interesting on this track to me is down but determined for PvP. When you're down, it takes longer before you collapse. That can be a critical difference between your team living or not compared to another, because if you can go and hide and stay up for longer, it's more likely your team can maybe res you. And this one too, it's in the same vein of when you're down, you just take less damage. So these two super PvP focused, I'm probably going to wind up taking those in addition to those mobility ones I talked about earlier. This one, again, like, I don't really find it necessary. This one I don't find helpful at all. Like, melee's costing less stamina, like, who cares? How often are you actually using melee? Unless you want, like, this one, which is melee damage to drones, which again, I don't really care about those at all. This one can be okay. You know, it's in the same vein as like if your shield is not slowing you down as much, then this one is your gun is not slowing you down as much, especially if you like things like the Torrente or really large heavy weapons and rifles, like could be interesting. And then, you know, this one is your health regenerates to a certain point. I think if you're that wounded, most of the time you're going to die anyway, so I'm not really a big fan of it. And then this one, it's like, okay, you can kill wasps and turrets with a melee attack, but how often are you really doing that? So, you know, these three to me are not worth taking. And that's how I think about skills. I mean, it's really depending on your play style and what you want to accomplish. You know, some of them, like I said, is more PvP focused, but I would say the ones that make you faster, run faster or longer, more stamina, like those are 100% critical. So just think about it. And if you're worried about it, like don't commit a skill right away, just think about it, and then you can always upgrade later. But that's the skill tree. I do have a point available, so I think I'll take, I think I might take less noise, but I do want to get to here pretty quick, so I'm just going to pop it in survival, because I need 36 points to get this. Yeah, skill points is just you get a point every level. Every time you level up, you get a skill point, and then like I said, if you reset your account, for every $1 million of value, you get a skill point for your next character. So I started with 4. I now have, 16 plus 19. So you just get them along the way. But I highly recommend for your first skill points, max these 2 out, like I did. You don't want to be falling behind. You need to be able to run. Sorry, and for the video, the question was, how do you get skill points? And the answer is by leveling or by earning them through your expedition. And that is the skill tree. So I'll stop recording here and start the next section. All right, this is part 3. So we've talked about all the menu items. We've talked about the skill tree, projects. I think what we should do is I'm just going to take a gun. Doesn't matter what. Just want to show you guys something in the practice range. This is going to be a little bit of a section here related to aim, and apologies for people who are really skilled, in shooting games and things like that. But this will be a little bit of a basic tutorial, but this is what I always tell people to do. So find a straight line like this, and then turn around, and then what you want to do is, in a natural wrist motion, like you were playing in a game, if someone was attacking you from behind, let's say, if you swing your mouse around, like how quickly can you turn in a natural motion? And you can see I'm a little bit under, right? So when I'm on the line, if I flick my wrist, that one was overcorrected, but see, I came up a little bit short. So I'm used to this. This is my gameplay, but ideally your mouse in a natural wrist motion, whatever natural means to you. It could be a wrist flick, it could be, you drag your arm, however you play the game, right? You want to be able to mimic this to do 180 degrees with no problem. And then if you're finding yourself, like, let's say I flicked the wrist and I was coming up here, or I'm coming up short every time, like I'm not facing the line, right? Like maybe I'm here. Well, that means you can either turn up your DPI on your mouse, or you set your settings in the game, settings, controls, mouse and keyboard sensitivity. You want to turn that up. You don't have to make a massive change, maybe like 10% each time, like from 40 go to 45, and then go to 50, like whatever it means to you, to be able to naturally be able to turn around quickly with one fluid wrist motion. because you want to be able to quickly do that, and you don't want to find yourself being like, oh, I'm here, and then you have to do another mouse drag to get all the way, like, because you want to be able to look behind you very quickly and react to someone shooting you in the back. And then the other things you can practice, what I would practice is slide, shoot, roll, shoot, sprint, dive, shoot, sprint, jump, shoot, stuff like that. I mean, just come in here and run drills of just getting used to the movement, because you want to be able to slide, roll, and that's why I like it where I can roll on my keyboard and then dive or roll on my mouse, because then I'm not having to like use my pinky for one thing and my thumb for another thing. It's too complicated. So I do run, slide on the keyboard, jump with the mouse, stuff like that. So I just come in here and try to practice that type of thing. And you can, it's got ammo, it's got all the guns. Like, just come in here with the guns and get used to how they work. And the other thing you can think about doing is when you go to settings, there's a way, I want to say it's under maybe graphics. Let me check. It's been a while since I've done this. Maybe it's... oh yeah, it's under accessibility. You can change your crosshair how you want it. So you go override crosshair shape, click on, and then there's all sorts of different shapes, whether it's circles, regular, all this type of stuff, crosses. I like the triangle, and I like having the dot in the middle. You can also change how big the dot is. You can change the length of the crosshairs. You can change the thickness. You can change the color. Like, whatever works for you, you can come in here and change it. I know a lot of people like the circle. I just like the triangle. For me, it works. It kind of gives you, I like that it goes in like that. And for me, like, when I'm trying to aim at headshots, the reason I like the triangle is, the bottom of the triangle basically aligns with the neck or the shoulders. So, like, it's just right on top of the shoulders, you can see, and then you get the headshot. So I like it for me, but, experiment with whatever works for you. And I'll just get out of here and return to Esperanza. No. All right, so we had a question come in about trials. So trials are, if you go to Raider and you go to trials, this is basically like a weekly quest. So this one is an event-specific quest of gathering snowballs from snow patches and throwing them at Rocketeers, which I'm frankly just not interested in doing, so I haven't done it yet. Shredders are in Stella Montis. Yeah, that's a whole can of worms. If you don't like Stella Montis, you probably won't be doing that. But these reset every week. It resets in a day here. But so how it works is, if you get 1,000 points in a trial, you'll get a green case, 2,500 blue, and 4,000 purple. And it's just a way to kind of spice up your runs if you want to do this. It's not really, I wouldn't focus on them too much as a newer player, but some of them are easy, and some of them you can just do in normal runs, like destroying fireballs. You're going to run into fireballs when you're playing, so you might as well kill them. Opening arc probes, like, you're going to run into them, so you might as well open them. But, so this isn't like necessary to focus on, but just, you can kind of keep an eye on what they are every week and try to do it if you want to. Mostly, if you go to cred, like if you click your blue cred here, you'll see the dailies. And these ones are more important to kind of focus on if you can, like arc, searching one arc probe, you get 10 cred. Shooting guys with medium ammo, you get some cred, which I haven't really been focused on PvP lately, but you can kind of look at these things and just do them. You're naturally going to get these as you play the game, just because a lot of them just align with playing. So I guess let's talk about inventory stuff for a minute. So you can see I just kind of keep things on hand. one thing I did want to talk about was weapons. What I would do if I'm new, especially like levels 1 through 10, I just go free loadout every time and bring the guns back that you like. You know, create a stash of them. You can see I don't have a million guns. Some people do, but I keep just enough guns on hand to what I want to run with. And what I would do, especially for Stitchers, Kettles, you know, just upgrade them. Just go to upgrade. You know, it takes mechanical components, simple gun parts to get to level 4, but like let's say I was upgrading my Pharaoh, for example, it's just metal parts. I mean, everyone's gonna have metal, so you know, it's better to run with a level 3 or a level 4 gun, especially like this one's got faster reload speed for a single shot gun, super important. The Rattler has 24 rounds instead of 12 if you get it to level 4. You know, the Kettle's going to shoot faster. The Stitcher level 4 is just PvP god tier weapon, so I mean, I really like to use them. But what I would recommend is only go in with the gear you're willing to lose, so there's no problem running free loadouts for a long time. You know, build up this stuff, and then when you feel more comfortable, like, yeah, throw in a level 3 or a level 4 weapon, run in, see how it works for you. Like I said, Stitcher, it's, you know, very, very good PvP weapon, especially if you can hit the headshots. And if you want to throw an extended mag on it, it's super helpful. I actually really like the Kettle. When I first started playing the game, I hated it because it's single shot, you got to click. But I have found, in terms of the accuracy, in terms of the time to kill, if you can hit the headshots and you can click pretty quick, you can kill someone in like 8 shots with this thing, and it's very underrated, so I do like it. The Rattler's my least favorite, but like I said, I keep them around because if you can level it to level 4, you know, they are worth using. They're pretty good against the Arc, and they're not terrible with PvP if you have the larger magazine, but you know, when they first were out, they had 10 rounds. The level 1 ones now have 12 rounds. It's just okay, but it's the weakest weapon in the game at level 1. So if I were you, I wouldn't even run in with a level 1 or a level 2. Like, at least get it to 3 or 4. I think they increased the shotgun damage because I was getting like 2-shotted with level 1 Il Toros the other day in PvP, so don't sleep on the shotgun. And run a choke on it for a better, less bullet dispersion. They're very, very good. I don't recommend the shotgun silencers. It doesn't really matter too much. The chokes are really what matters more. And then like Renegade, I love the level 4 Renegade. The shoot time on it and just the accuracy of it is a very good weapon. But I'm just saving it up till I can upgrade it to level 4. The Venator level 4 is still pretty good, although they did nerf it, so it's not as good as it was, but it's very good in PvP over time. And then if you didn't know already, how you expand your stash size is this button here. You just want to do this over time. You know, as you have the money, you can expand it. I'm currently at 130,000 to upgrade, which, you know, I'm at 200,000 total money right now, so I'm not going to do it until I have maybe, I don't know, 300,000 or 400,000 just to kind of blow on that. But I have a lot of room, so I'm not really worried about it. And then the other thing you can do to save room in your stash is if you have like extra weapons mods laying around, you can just, like, I'll put this Tempest on, I'll just throw these on there, or maybe not that one, but sorry. I'll just throw them on there just to get rid of them out of my stash. Because they're just gonna sit in there anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And you can take them off later. So that's a way to save room in your stash. For crafting materials, you know, just keep enough on hand. Here's a trick that I use, especially at low level, just to save space. you get chemicals, fabric, metal, and rubber and plastic from Scrappy. So these things are coming in all the time. Like, I'm not really worried about saving up a huge amount of them. So for chemicals, I like to keep, 5 or 6 stacks of them, and I'll just sell the remainder. Again, like 6 stacks of fabric, I'll just sell the remainder. Metal, super important. I wouldn't sell that. Plastic, you can kind of keep, 4 or 5 stacks. Rubber, same. Maybe like 5-6 stacks of rubber. So just sell those off if you're getting too full in your inventory, and you can make money and save space. Like I said, seeds are really important for late game, so I've been saving them up. And then everything else is just kind of as you need it for upgrades. Like Scrappy needs fruit, cat bed, lemon, mushrooms, things like that. So, you can kind of keep them around. I know for me, I'll need light bulbs for my quest later, so I'm kind of keeping a few around. But, there's not a huge reason to keep trinkets and everything else unless you think you need them. And you can ask me or a Sherpa or whoever else, like, hey, I found this music box, do you think I need it? And things like that. And unless it's event specific or project specific, you don't really need to keep those around. You just want to keep selling them and make money. Yeah, Oh, sure. Yeah, so if I'm going to run, like, let's say I want to run something light, so I'll throw like a looting kit on, shield. Let's say, it's a good question. Here's what I recommend for a kit if you're going to run a kit going in. So one item has to be PvP focused. So let's say my PvP gun's going to be the Stitcher. And then I want a gun that's going to help me kill Arc. For me, right now, I would normally use an anvil, some type of heavy weapon like a Pharaoh or an anvil. But the Renegade's also very good for Arc PvE. What I would do is, I'm just going to show you like my normal loadout, and I'm going to make a couple rounds of ammo here just to show. If I run anything, I will run 2 full stacks of ammo for each gun and a half a stack of ammo for each gun. Like, this is what I would normally run in with. I don't want to run out of ammo, and your gun loads when you spawn in, right? So out of this 50, I know that 20 is going to be loaded into this gun out of that stack immediately. And then for this gun, it's 16. So out of 40, it'll be, it'll be down, right? So these half stacks will be reduced because you're loading your weapons when you spawn in. For quick use, I'll always run 5 shield rechargers. I will run, if I have normal bandages, I might run 10 of them. If I have herbal bandages, I'll bring a stack. But this is normally what I would bring for healing. Vita shots and surge rechargers, like, very rarely will I bring them. It depends, because these take longer to deploy in combat, so I'm not a huge fan of them. Sometimes I just sell them for the money early game, and in fact, I might just sell these Vita shots because they're worth 6,600 and I'm not using them at the moment. Yes. Yeah, so right, yeah, the question came in of just like what are you selling, especially in the first like 10 levels, 20 levels, and the focus on building up your stash and your money. And yeah, so I would recommend selling stuff you're not going to use, especially if it's worth 5,000-6,000. Like even the snap hook, like I'm not a big snap hook player, some people are. You're going to get snap hooks over the course of the game, and if you feel like, hey, I don't want to really mess with this gold level item early, as I'm learning the game, just sell it. It's 14,000, it's taking up a slot in your inventory. You can sell it, you're going to find them, and you're going to You're going to get a blueprint for it later, so you can make them, and you're going to find them, and you're going to get snap hooks as rewards from events. So it's not like ultra rare, and you know, a lot of people just don't like using them because it's a loss of when you die, you feel like you've lost a lot of money, and they're difficult to use. But if you learn how to do it, they can be really useful. But for me, I don't. It's not my playstyle, so I just don't. And then these things, these purple items, the cloak and the spray, I save them up for specific reasons, and it's all related to like matriarch and queen runs, like especially solo. So what I'll do to make friends is I'll run in, and if people are taking damage, I'll use Vita spray on them to like heal them up, or if I'm trying to like steal, you know, queen parts or whatever, I can use the cloak to get out there and not be seen and kind of snag some stuff. So I keep these around for situational use, but I wouldn't run these as part of a normal raid. And then for my other quick use items, like I'd probably run a grenade, at least a stack of grenades. You know, the best ones are actually the at the moment the trigger nades. So I might make a stack of those. Bring those in. Those are super deadly PvP. And sometimes I like to run zip lines just for mobility, mines just for putting on doors and things like that. But I'm not a big like barricade or blocker guy. It's very situational. So I usually sell these, especially early game. Smoke grenades I usually sell early game. Heavy fuse grenades I usually sell early game, because for me that, you know, they have too long of a fuse to be super useful. Even the snap blast grenades, I feel like, you know, they have a short delay and they stick to things, yeah, but are they as good as trigger nade? No. So I would prefer a trigger nade over a snap blast, and if I'm running short on inventory, I might just sell snap blasts. And then for safe pockets, that's going to be like where I throw a key. If I'm running in, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go to this key area, then I'll throw it in my safe pocket. And how safe pockets work is it depends on your augments, right? So when you're looking at the augment screen, this will show you, okay, I can run a level 2 shield, a medium shield. I have 4 quick use pockets, I have 3 med quick use pockets, and I have 3 safe pockets. So I'll just throw it on just so you can see, right? So now, for example, I can just drag all my med items here. It's still quick use, but now I have 3 extra slots for like grenades, tools, defibs, like whatever. Plus I have 3 safe pockets to throw in keys, rare items, all that kind of good stuff. So that's what you should think about for safe pockets and slots. And I guess with that, we'll stop the recording and start the next section. All right, so this is the last section, section 4 of the recording. We've gone through, you know, all the menus. We've gone through the skill tree, events, your cred, you know, dailies, all this kind of stuff, aim, settings and stuff like that, graphic settings and other things to optimize that. I guess, I don't know if it's going to be helpful to run something here and just kind of, maybe I'll just do like a quick run. So I'm going to take everything off and I'm just going to go free loadout. So let's say, for example, like I know that I need a frying pan. If you click on frying pan, it says can be found in residential areas. I'm like, okay, residential, where can I find that? Well, I go to my map, inspect, and it'll show you the little symbols. So like Grandiose Apartments says residential. Well, frying pan could be there. Frying pan could be all in residential areas here. If I'm looking for batteries, stuff like that, it would be industrial, which is not on this map, but there's other maps with it. So, you know, use the maps, little symbols to tell you, all right, this one has medical and commercial items. This one has old world items and residential. So all of these kind of areas would be where I might find a frying pan. So it's actually, you know, instead of running a game, I'm just going to talk about the maps and stuff real quick. So for Buried City, how I think about that is there's a couple things I like to run. So one is this area and this area have good trinket level loot, you know, where you do a loot run in this building in particular, or in Plaza Rosa in particular, in the pharmacy. Those will have all of your diamond items, which is like wristwatches, statues, snow globes, all the stuff that you can get and sell to make money. So a lot of times if I'm bored or something like that and I just want to make money, I'll just free kit, run this loot route, you know, 10 times in a row and try to make money. And the other thing I like to do is on Hospital Building up here, if you take a zip line and you go from the gas station, you can set up right here and deploy a zip line to the top of this building. There is a room on top that usually has a weapons crate and some loot. So if you run in with like a low loadout with a zip line, or you find a zip line, go up to the top of the hospital, get that gun, get that loot, and you know, that's a good way to start like a match. Other than that, like that's kind of what I use Buried City for. Like I said, that kind of loot run down here and maybe the hospital. For Spaceport, this is a map that I use to farm two things. One is security breach lockers, and the security breach lockers are pretty abundant. They're in Guard Tower A, Guard Tower B, Guard Tower C, Guard Tower D, Guard Tower E. You know, so they're all in these guard towers plus these little buildings here. So you can get, you know, 3 or 4 guns just by looting those types of lockers if you have that particular skill, which it takes 36 skill points to get that skill. But when I was doing like late game runs and I needed guns, I would just run this route over and over again, and I'd have like 15 guns in a matter of, you know, 3 runs or something like that. So that was useful to me. The trench is where you can find, there's a mushroom spawn right here. It's a little tree down in the trench at the very end. It spawns 3 mushrooms, so if you need mushrooms for Scrappy or different upgrades, you can find them, guaranteed find them at this tree. And then the other thing I use this map for is in Control Tower, not the high tower building, but the lower building beside it. This has a bunch of trinkets in the drawers, you know, film reels, statues, rosaries, all that kind of stuff you can use to make money. And I usually can get like 5 or 6 of those items just on this second floor of this building right here. And then, you know, Bastion or Bombardiers can spawn all through here or here. Bastion or Bombardier can spawn in the trench. Leapers can spawn here and here. Rocketeers all around Launch Tower. So if you're going after big arc for parts and stuff, this map would be the #1 map you would use to farm those types of things. Rocketeers, Leapers, Bastions, Bombardiers. Like, this is the #1 map for doing that. For Blue Gate, I used to hate this map. I thought it was way too open and their PvP was crazy and all this kind of stuff, but I've learned to really love this map. One is the village is abundant with like trinkets and all this kind of stuff in the drawers. You can just run through these apartments, get looted up, and just, you know, you could have a full inventory just running village, and then you can get out using this air shaft. There's also, super important, Olive Grove is where you get olives, lemons, apricots, all that kind of stuff you would need for Scrappy and all that kind of agricultural items. And you can see that it's got the little nature symbol. So this big area that you guys should know to harvest plants and stuff like that. And then the other cool thing on this map is if you spawn Ridgeline, for example, you beeline it to this building here, this little, it's like a little pair of buildings, and there's a rope that goes down, and there is usually a guaranteed weapons crate at the bottom of this rope, and there could be 2 that spawn in that area. They're basically on top of the pipes that when you take the zip line down, you're on top of the pipes, and you'll see the weapons crates like up in that area. So if I run in free loadout, and I spawn here, I immediately go there so I can find a gun. But this is a map it's a little intimidating. There's a lot of underground areas all through here. There's a lot of PvP in this area here in particular, but if you can learn how to quickly get in, navigate the underground, this is a really good map to find weapons, especially in reinforced reception and this area, like I said. And one thing too is, as you're doing the quests, especially as lower level players, the quests teach you where to go in each of the maps. Like, it, you know, the point of the quest is actually just to get you familiar with the different maps and like the different interest points. I mean, there's really no other point to quests other than that. It's built, it's an in-game design built to get you familiar with the maps. And then last thing on this map I would say is there's a puzzle at Ancient Fort you can watch a YouTube on. You can install batteries and open up a secret cellar. And then the other puzzle is at Raider's Refuge. There's 4 buttons at this church area that you can, again, watch a YouTube on it, but you can open up a cellar and there's usually a gun and stuff like that down there. So there's a couple like cool puzzles in this map. And there's kind of a cool puzzle if you go down this zip line here, it'll take you underground into basically like this area. And there's a little battery puzzle, but this whole area right here underground is really heavy PvP, so you just have to be careful. But there's 3 main puzzles in this map that are kind of interesting and fun if you can do them. Yeah, question coming in. Yeah, the question that came in is, as new players, do you recommend going to high tier loot areas? And the answer is always yeah. I would say yes. There's no reason for you not to go in any area. But I'll caveat that to say it's always dependent. Like, there's no reason for you not to go there. It just depends on, do you hear a bunch of people dying? Is there a bunch of PvP going on? Like, if so, maybe avoid the area. But if not, and you're being nice to people too in your encounters, you're not just like shooting kill on sight and you're saying like, hey, what's up? Like, use your voice chat. Sometimes people are just going to work together and be friendly. So I would say yes. Like, there's no reason not to try to go into these areas. And honestly, the best advice I can give to a game like this is you just have to run the maps over and over and over again so that you know exactly where you're going. Like, you know, I used to be lost on this map of like, oh, it's so huge, like there's all this underground tunnels, like I don't know what's happening. But I just ran it a million times, and now I can close my eyes and picture myself like going through all these places, no problem. The only map that I'm really bad at it actually is Stella Montes, because I haven't played it enough to really get used to it. But for Spaceport, Buried City, Dam, and Blue Gate, like I can just see in my head every single area, every single tunnel, every single, you know, room, because I've done it so many times. It's easy. The only yep. Mm-hmm. Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the question came in about, as you're leveling up, the maps start unlocking for you, and how did I learn where to look for items, and did I watch YouTubes and all this kind of stuff? So the answer is I mostly learned it just by doing it. And so again, if you go to your inventory, let's say, and you're looking for a specific item, let's just say you're looking for wires. So you can inspect the wires, and they say can be found in electrical areas or technological areas. Then when you click on the map, you can look for those symbols, right? So yeah, that's right. Yeah, and you kind of know over time, like, where they spawn, and yeah, so use the map legend really heavily. And then for like puzzles and stuff, I just watch YouTube and stuff on how to do it, because for example, like on Blue Gate, like I said, the fort has 3 batteries, but they can be spread all over this area and in the fort. So I watched a video about like where can they spawn, and then I just familiarized myself with, you know, there's 10 different spawns, and I just search for them. Or at Raiders Refuge, I think there's like 15 spawns for the buttons, but they kind of, you know, you can watch a YouTube on it and know how to do it, but it took me a while to figure that one out. Yeah. Well, you can, so the question came in is someone's looking for wires, and he's kind of stuck on getting wires. So first I would say you can use the map like we've talked about, but the other thing is wires will always spawn inside of a computer. They'll typically spawn in like big wall units that require you to breach it open, right? Like big electrical looking boxes and stuff like that. So there's a little bit of yes, the loot will spawn in the area where it's likely, but loot will also spawn intuitively like it does in real life. Of like, oh, I'm looking for batteries and wires, I'm going to look inside a computer terminal, or I'm going to look inside that type of stuff. So breach those open to get those types of things. And the other thing too is use your like, I don't know exactly what recycles into wires off the top of my head, but if you click recycle, it'll tell you what things break down into. So if you have like items that you don't really care about or know about, like, see this one's wires and rubber, I'll just recycle it and get, or I think the toaster's got wires, yeah, like, you know. So use recycling too. And over time you kind of learn what things you don't really need. Like, I knew I needed I needed rusted gears for something earlier, but like rusted tools, I don't need them, so I'll just recycle them into metal and springs, because I definitely need those things. Yeah, that's right. I've done enough quests to know kind of what you need, what you don't. And, you know, again, if so long as you've set up like all your workshops and everything to track the resources you think you want for things, and your quests and stuff like that, you should kind of get an idea of like what's important and what's not, at least low level. And then like look, that I wouldn't worry too much about like trying to save every single thing, because the fact of the matter is you're going to find all this stuff over and over again as you play the game over time. So, and that's about it. I mean, I don't think it'll be super helpful to run a match, but I think we've covered a lot, and to just generally talk about it. So I'm going to stop the recording here. Hopefully that was useful for everyone. And yeah, thanks for, I'm going to stop the recording. We can, hey, good afternoon everybody. This is Crobbies. I just wanted to do a slight sliding tutorial. So I'm going to start at this rock. I'm just going to run, slide down the hill, and I want you to notice how far I go with the slide. I go all the way down to this cone. Now that is not holding down the shift key, but if I start here and I slide and I'm still holding the shift key, look at where I get up, right? That's a big difference. So the best way to actually slide the longest distance is to actually slide, hit the slide button, take your finger off the shift key, and you're going to slide a lot further. Again, as a comparison, this time I'm going to hold the shift key down, and you're going to see what happens. All right, see, I'm up again. So that's the difference. Make sure you let go of the shift key when you're sliding. That's it. Thanks.